Today's video is for partners of people with erectile dysfunction to help you understand what's going on with them deep below the surface in this really, really painful problem and what they really need in order to overcome this and how you can help. And if you get something out of today's video, please hit the like button. It does really help with the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you're looking for a little bit more help, I do work with men one-on-one and I work with couples. So if you're looking for that, there's a link down below on how to get a hold of me. Stick around. So your partner is struggling with erectile dysfunction. The first thing I want to say is they're struggling a lot more than you think they are. This problem is set up in a very unique way in our lives because of how, as men, we are taught to grow up and how our society treats men to not really let on how much pain we're really in. We highlight athletes who, get in fights or hurt themselves and then come back into the game. As men, we're taught to be strong. And part of that is that we shouldn't cry and we shouldn't feel our emotions. And so what you just have to understand that your partner is struggling significantly more than you think they are. And the part of that is because they feel like being a man is keeping their problems from affecting you. They don't want to dump their problems on you. It's a phrase that I hear so many times from people that I work with. It's like, oh, I don't want to dump my problems on that person. Well, when you enter into a relationship, as you probably already know, your problems come with you. And, my problems affect my partner, her problems affect me. It's just a two-way street. That's how things work. But it's a good thing to understand about what men are going through is that because this problem is so painful, another phrase that's very common that comes up with men with ED is they feel broken. I can't even count the number of times that I've heard the words "I feel broken" come from somebody I'm working with, and I can relate completely. That's exactly how I felt. I use those same words myself, and so it's really interesting to see how men on their own individually come up with the same phrase because it feels very true to what's happening. And because they feel broken, one of the things that creates in a relationship is that they don't actually understand why you're really with them. So this leaves men in a feeling of like insecurity and like the relationship with you is always on the brink of being over. Because of how painful this problem is. And it's not universal, but it's pretty common experience for guys to feel this way. And that may seem strange because for you, this problem may not be that big of a deal. You haven't experienced a lot of pain around it, but they have, because for them, this problem isn't just about having an issue with erections. It's about their manhood. Because of how we're taught as men to be, sex is a big part of being a man. And so when you're not able to get an erection with someone that you care about and that you're attracted to and you should have an erection with, it feels like you're not a man. So this problem cuts into a very, very deep level into men's lives. And although that's really challenging, it can also be really helpful because in the long run, what guys who overcome this problem go through is they get to remove their view of themselves as being a man as being related to their erections. And as weird as that is, it's something that allows for a lot more confidence. Those two things being deeply intertwined tends to create a lot of insecurity because you need certain conditions to be met in order to feel really confident. And when those conditions aren't met, then you feel really insecure. And the other thing to keep in mind with this is that because because of the way men are taught to live and act in our society, it's really, really hard for men to talk about this problem. There's a lot of shame around it because they don't feel like being a man. They don't feel like they're a man. And it makes it really hard for them to ask and accept for help. So even if you're offering help and you can help them, it makes it really hard for them to do it because they feel like another part of being a man is taking care of your own problems. And I know that isn't true, but it's just how they feel. So one of the things that you want to work with in this situation is just navigating the pressures that they're dealing with, whether they're real or imagined doesn't matter. It's how they're experiencing things. So what do they need? What men really need in this situation is they need you to treat this like a wound. And if you imagine coming across someone that you don't know and they're just bleeding profusely from, from their abdomen, um, they may not trust you immediately. They don't know who you are, they're hurt, they're scared, and they don't know what they need in order to get over this. They just know something's really wrong. And so the first thing is to just take a step back and understand that you probably really want to help them. If you find somebody in that condition, most people are going to want to try and help them. But before you can even help them, you have to start getting by some of those defenses because they're not going to let you help them until they feel safe. And the most common experience that men have with this issue is that at a really deep level, there's a lot of fear. So they feel really unsafe, even during sex. So most guys during sex, the way that fear shows up is that they're constantly worried about losing their erection. You may be looking all hot and whatever you're wearing and two of you are getting intimate. And during that whole time, what's going on in their mind is, oh no, is it going to happen again? Am I going to lose my erection? And then at a deeper level, which these guys oftentimes don't realize is going on, it isn't even about losing the erection. It's about the consequences of losing the erection. Every guy who's lived has lost an erection at some point. It's okay. It's a natural thing. But when you lose it on a more regular basis, it starts to trigger that fear of, oh no, this person's going to leave me because I'm not a real man, because I'm broken. And so oftentimes what men really need more than anything is they need to understand that all the reasons that you're with them, they need to understand that you bring a lot more into their lives than just sex. And so men and women generally tend to have different values around what's important in a relationship. And this isn't because men and women value different things. It's just that the way that we've learned to create value in a relationship is different. So it's oftentimes hard for women to realize this because their view is so different than men's. But men value sex very, very highly in relationships. And they assume that because they value sex very highly, that women also value sex very highly. So if they cannot provide sex if you're not having 10 orgasms every time you guys have sex and you're not having sex on some imaginary interval that they've created in their mind, that's unacceptable. And since women tend to not value sex nearly as highly as men, they value things like emotional connection and support and feeling safe and making them laugh and all the other components of a relationship that are important. Because the value is just different, you may not even understand why a man feels so threatened about this problem. So just meeting him where he's at but also helping him understand the reasons why you're in the relationship with him in the first place, so that he feels less threatened about this issue. And what men really need in this situation is that they do need to open up about this pain. So I want to be really clear. Opening up about this erectile dysfunction, being able to tell you that they feel scared is a really important thing for them. But it has to happen on their terms. You are at most a support in this situation, and at worst a hindrance to this. Because just imagine that situation with the wounded person again. If you try to get near someone and you realize that you need to cut their clothes off so you can get to the wound to treat it, but all they understand is that you just pulled out a knife, that isn't going to go well. And for men that are dealing with this, you trying to get near the emotional stuff around this, it's just violating several levels of their identity. It's saying, feel your emotions, which they've been trained not to do. And then there's also just a matter of you're triggering the fear. So you're just kind of hitting a couple layers of their mental security system. And you have to deal with those before you can help them with what's going on. So what can you actually do? Well, I want to start off with something that you shouldn't do first. Don't try to fix them. This problem is a very deeply personal issue for men. And what that means is that this issue is actually a process of them discovering their own value. So when men are going through this, there's a lot of insecurity that has to be dealt with. And that insecurity can only come out when something like this happens. And so, to some degree, this is just a self-discovery. This is an issue. Issue is the wrong word. This is a process where men are getting in touch with their own emotions and learning how to navigate what comes out of that. And for a lot of guys in our modern culture, they have no idea how to feel their emotions. And for women, that's oftentimes a really foreign experience because generally in our culture, women are more in touch with their emotions. So don't try to fix the problem for them. Don't try to do anything other than just become more aware of what their needs are. Pay attention to how they're thinking and how they're talking, and that will reflect how they're thinking and feeling. And also understand that as they're going through this process will leave them feeling much more secure and fulfilled in the long run after they heal it. But while they're going through it, they're going to act oftentimes like a wounded animal. And that the process of protecting themselves has nothing to do with you. It's not that they don't trust you because you're not trustworthy. It's that they don't trust you because of past experiences that have taught them that they need to hide things. So the next thing you can do is to help men open up emotionally about anything. So this can be a really nice step for men because if you can help them open up about something that is less painful but kind of scary, it can start to create some trust. One of the things I often recommend to people to start talking about is if you can get them to talk openly about their deepest, darkest sexual fantasies, as weird as it is, that can start to help the problem because it just starts to create trust. And some of that is dependent upon how you react. So if they start to open up and they have some kind of porn that's always been really interesting to them, and they start opening up to you about the problem or about that type of porn, and you react in a harsh way or a negative way, what that's teaching them is it's going to teach them to close back up and that they can't trust you. So it doesn't have to be about sex. If you can get them to start talking about parts of their childhood that were challenging or something that happened when, something recently that happened that was painful, it can just start to create trust and allow them to feel safe opening up. And a lot of times in this situation, men don't even really know how to open up. So being able to open up to them about things can be helpful too. It just helps to create a two-way street, but the challenge with this is that you are probably more skilled at opening up emotionally than they are, or they wouldn't be stuck dealing with this problem. So you have to navigate that. So in this situation, you need to be patient with them, and just understand that the process of dealing with this is slow. And if they start to open up a little bit and then they need to stop and they kind of give you a boundary, you have to respect that. It's really important that when they put up any type of boundary that you respect it immediately because they need to understand that if they say no, it's okay, that you'll understand that that's the time to stop. What this does is this also allows trust. So if if they give you an inch and then they say no and they stop and then you respect it, it'll make them feel more comfortable next time, maybe giving 2 inches or maybe even just another inch at first. But if you don't respect the no and you try to push further, what's going to happen is that you're not even going to get an inch anymore. So just deal with them where they're at, not where you want them to be, and just allow this process to happen, even if it takes longer than you want. It oftentimes does take longer than you want, but also remember it's taking longer than they want to. They want this problem to be over. This problem is so painful for them. But it has to happen in a way where they feel safe. So just remember back to when I was talking about sex, how oftentimes they're feeling afraid of losing their erection and losing you. This whole thing is being created by fear. So you have to let them feel safe and create a space where they feel safe, and they have to realize that they're safe. So it's a really important part of allowing them to open up is creating that space for them where they feel safe. And how they feel safe is going to be different for each person, but the best way that you can do to help is in that way is to do what you can to help them both feel safe and realize that they are safe. And the last thing that I want to talk about is that it sort of stems off something I said before, that this is a deeply personal journey. So don't take too much responsibility for it. There are men out there who are going to put every amount of effort they have into dealing with this because it's so painful, and they're willing to change and let go of all this stuff and open up. There's guys that they want to, but they're scared and it's just going to take some time. There's guys who are never going to open up about this, and that's the truth. And there is no amount of you pushing that's going to help them overcome it. You have to understand that you can support them, and the majority of the healing will happen with you. But if they don't want to open up, if they don't want to deal with this problem, they're never going to overcome it, because it's an internally personal issue. It's very intertwined with their own sense of identity, and dealing with stuff like this is very challenging. I have been through some pretty serious training in my life, and I can tell you that dealing with this problem was the most challenging thing I've ever done. So, it really comes down to you for like, what do you need to do to be happy? And I mean that in the sense of, how can you deal with your own needs while he's dealing with his own needs? And what I mean by that is you cannot base your current situation needs on how you want him to be. You may be with someone who's just never going to overcome it. And the only way that you'll know that is by time and effort. But it takes a long time sometimes. It took me 7 years for, I've talked to guys that have been dealing with this problem for 20 years. There's not a lot of people who really understand how to navigate this well. And, it's an art form. There isn't a specific do this, because a lot of it's navigating emotions and fears and things like that. And those are nebulous. And so even guys who really want to overcome this, it's not always going to be it's never going to be an instant thing. It's always going to be a gradual thing. So those are the things that you can do. And I'll probably make some more videos around this topic, because I do get a lot of questions from partners, and I do work with partners with men I'm working with as well. So if you're looking for some more help and you want to get a little bit more direct results, there's a link down below to my website on how you can get a hold of me. And I also do have a community that I've started on Reddit, and I'll link that down below. I do give a lot of free advice there. So if you have a question or something like that, just go ahead and post it there, and I will help you out as much as I can, given the information you give me. So if you got something out of today's video, please hit that like button and subscribe, and stick around for next week, and I'll see you then. All right.